I'm Gaddy Anton from BrokenMyth.net, and today we have the great honor of speaking to the recent VIPL champions, Ardent Alliance. And today I have with me FlashX and Shin Kaigen, both of that team. And, well, in any case, thank you for joining us, guys. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves to those people who might be watching, who may not be completely familiar with who you are?
Yeah, so my name's FlashX. I am the roam player for Ardent Alliance. The guild name is Ardent. Our team is specifically Alliance, and I'm joined here by Shin Kaigen today, which I'm sure all of you may know. Shin, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shin Kaigen. I was actually the sub for Ardent Alliance, and I was filling in for I Love Joseph as a jungler. And you usually see me streaming on like Twitch and Mob Crush for the most part.
What part of the continent are you actually in? You don't need to be specific. I don't want people going to your house or anything like that. But then also other details such as, you know, how long you've been playing Vainglory? Do you have prior MOBA experience?
So yeah, it's not private knowledge to me. I'm from Denver, Colorado. Not too specific, but no one's gonna show up in my house with that knowledge. I've been playing Vainglory since October of 2014. I actually downloaded it when it was only available in the SEA region. That's how badly I wanted to play it when I first saw it at the Apple keynote in September of that year. Past MOBA experience, I played both the original Dota when it was just a custom game in Warcraft 3, and then I played Dota 2 for almost 2 years.
Wow. Shin?
Yeah. So I originally lived in LA, down in Southern California, but I've recently moved up to Vancouver, Canada. It's a really nice place, quite the change for sure, but I like it. So in terms of like other MOBA experience, I played a lot of Dota 1 back on the Warcraft 3 engine, and as well as League of Legends. I played that for like a good 3 to 4 years before I started playing Vainglory, back when it was first released on the NA servers. I think that was like November 2014, right? So a little bit over a year now. In terms of like any other prior experience with like PvP type games, I used to compete in like fighting game tournaments. I don't know how much that actually applies to the given situation, but you know, it just sounds something to throw out there.
Well, it's a good question to ask. I mean, first of all, I don't know if this dates me or if it dates either of you to say like we were playing Dota back in the day, Warcraft 3 mod, before MOBAs even existed as a genre. But in any case, I mean, even if you think about it, though, I'm sure that your prior MOBA experiences have kind of helped shape you and help prepare you for what you're doing today in Vainglory. But it makes me even think that when you're playing any sort of other competitive game, that you're probably just even the psychological component of trying to, you know, predict what your opponent's going to do and trying to anticipate and so forth. Do you find that that sort of psychology or skills transfers as well?
Oh, yeah. I definitely do. When I first started playing Vainglory, I immediately noticed a connection between Dota and Vainglory. I mean, MOBAs as a genre, I think, are very similar in terms of their strategy. You got to push down lanes in order to get to the opposing team's base. There's pretty distinct roles where you have an objective with the role. As the roamer, my job's to provide a lot of the utility and defensive items for the team, and I think that also applies to Dota especially.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like the skills transfer over. Like I still distinctly remember the first time I picked up the game, I was playing Ringo for the first match. And I was like, I went like 20-0, like or something like that. I'm like, wow, this is so easy. This is so much fun. So, I mean, like certain concepts that other players wouldn't understand first getting into the game, like tower aggro and buying items and trying to last hit. You know, like to a new player, they wouldn't understand any of that, or it would take them a lot longer. Whereas I went into the game already having a good grasp of those kind of mechanics. So that helped a lot.
Not to mention, I'm betting stutter stepping on a touch device is way easier than it is on a computer.
That one took me a long time because the fact of using my fingers to do it was very foreign, and then the fact that I had to use two fingers, it was crazy. So originally I only played with my one index finger until one of the devs were like, "Hey, have you tried playing with two?" I'm like, oh
like,
my
oh,
god,
wait, I
it's so
can do
much better.
So let's go ahead and move forward. Let's talk about Korea. I can only imagine that you guys are uprooting yourselves away from your homes, away from a lot of your friends, your family, where you're comfortable probably playing as well, and you're now trying to prepare yourselves to be world champions in a foreign area with foreign food, totally different time zone. How did that kind of play out for you guys? I mean, did that affect you guys in any sort of regard?
Yeah, I know. I think me especially, I was the one who kind of put in a lot of the work in terms of planning. I was just like, hey, Shin, Joseph can't go. We need someone else to go. I need you to come with me. These are the details. Just show up. And Shin said, okay. But because Alliance technically does not have a team manager right now, I was the one who kind of took on that task of handling us. So we ended up living with Gangstar Sirius over in Korea, which was nice. They had already been there twice, so they're pretty familiar with the area, what kind of things we need to be looking for. And one of the things they really harped on was you need to make sure that we have strong enough internet when we get there, because if the internet isn't stable enough or isn't fast enough, we're just not going to be able to practice. So when we ended up booking through Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted the host and I said, hey, we're a professional gaming team. We need fast internet. Luckily, Korea is also notoriously known for how strong their internet is. So I think the first 4 weeks we were there, we were in a house that had about 300 download and upload speed. And the last 2 weeks we changed because there was a little bit of a Christmas break, and we were at like 500 download and upload speed. I've never had anything that fast. It was absolutely amazing.
No, I think I have like 50 down at my house or something like that.
Yeah,
That's nuts.
it was unreal how fast it was. In terms of uprooting, I was working in sales. Obviously, there's not many jobs that you can say, hey, I'm going to be gone for 6 weeks. Can I have my job when I come back? They're like, no. So I quit my job to go pursue this. In retrospect now, it's been an awesome decision.
But take a step back before we go to Shin. Like, at the time, though, I mean, did your friends and family think you were kind of nuts? I mean, heck, if I'm talking to my friends and family right now, and they're like, hey, what have you been up to? And I'm like, hey, I do a video game blog. It's a conversation starter right there. Like, conversation's over.
Yeah,
Change
yeah.
topic.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it. They really couldn't. My parents especially were like, you're gonna do what? I was like, don't worry, like a lot of the expenses are covered, so it's not gonna be that expensive for us. I should be able to come back with comparable amount of money than what I would have made working full time anyways. So they're like, okay. They knew that I really enjoyed it, which was nice. Like Vainglory is my passion, and they're very supportive of me pursuing that. So I was very fortunate to have that.
That's awesome. How about yourself, Shin?
Yeah, so the whole trip to Korea was a very interesting one. I mean, like, because it was also came like Flash kind of mentioned it, but it came very like unexpectedly because we were planning on I Love Joseph to go. So I'm like, okay, so that's good. So I just started to plan for the rest of my year. Then suddenly I get a text from Flash like, Shin, like you have no one else. You have to come. It's like, oh boy, okay, let's do it.
How much notice was that?
That was, I think that was like, well, we had enough, but it was about a month or so beforehand, maybe like 3 weeks, something along those lines. So,
It was about a month, but he had to make the decision in the next 2 or 3 days because if Shin said no and he wasn't able to travel, we'd have to start figuring out, okay, can we bring someone else who wasn't technically rostered on our team, and things of that nature. But fortunately, Shin said yes, and it definitely worked out for the best.
Yeah, that was definitely a good choice. I was like, oh man, should I? Like, it's gonna put a halt on my streaming, but also like Flash and Mixie worked like really hard at it, and it seemed like it'd be like a shame if they couldn't go or something along that line. So like it was like, oh, okay. So when we first arrived in Korea, I was a little surprised because I didn't know what to expect from the place we're gonna be staying at, but it was a really modest house to say the least. So it was in like this area with like construction and whatnot, but nevertheless, it was like a really fun time to live with like gangsters and have infamous there too. So
Was there as well?
yes. So we had basically like two apartment type buildings, one on the first floor, one on the second floor. On the first floor, it was all of Ardent plus Gabe Vizzle and Cole the Meek. Meanwhile, Iraqi stayed upstairs with infamous. So in total of 9 people.
Wow. And so I think I heard I think I heard Flash make reference to this, but how did you guys end up financing the trip and the living expenses? Did you have any sponsors or benefactors that you'd want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so SEMC was definitely a huge factor in terms of that. Originally, my understanding was OGN was supposed to cover the flights, but then something happened where SEMC ended up covering them, and they also gave us some additional money for food and housing. So they were a huge help. Huge thanks to them. Obviously, none of this would be possible without them. But on top of that, Mob Crush also sponsored us. Just to help cover additional expenses, and we definitely used every last bit of it. And we definitely could not have gone without them either.
That's awesome. So let's go ahead and talk about the Vainglory International Premier League. So my understanding going into this is that you guys really hadn't been playing very long as a team prior to going to Korea, if at all.
Oh my gosh.
How long have you guys actually been playing? I mean, in fact, Shin, you were even a sub, so give us some insights into what was going on there.
So I can definitely say that, well, Flash and Mixie have played together for quite some time, a few months, I believe. But I can count the number of times I played with them on one hand, like before the tourney. In fact, the very first time that we played together, I believe, was actually the airport story, where I had to take over for I Love Joseph while I was flying over to TwitchCon. And that was literally the first time I had played together as a team. So that was very surprising. After that, and once we found out that I would be actually going to Korea, we tried to schedule some more practice time, but it's surprisingly difficult to do with people in different time zones, with different commitments, and it was really difficult. So instead, we just like, okay, when we get to Korea, we're going to train really hard there instead.
And what was that like? I mean, I'm guessing that you guys really kind of hit the books real quick and hard, so to speak, as you got to Korea. You're like, we really have to tighten up our game and so forth. Also, my understanding from talking to Shin previously is that you guys also, this was kind of like a catalyst for growth as a team and as players throughout your time in Korea together. Can you talk about kind of that process of how you grew, what you were doing together, and so forth?
Yeah, so we knew coming into the tournament that we had never played with Shin before. We had literally played one game with him, I guess technically 2 games, in one of the series of the VGL qualifiers that got us entered into VIPL. So we were like, okay, we got our work cut out for us if we want to do well. We didn't set unreasonable expectations going into it. We were like, okay, we just don't want to lose every single game in the group stage. That was literally our expectations. We just want to win one game in the group stage, and we'd be fine with that. So when we got to Korea, unfortunately, Mixie was having a little bit of visa problems, so he was actually very late getting to Korea anyways. I think 4 days before our first game as a team, so we really only had not much time to prepare as a team. Our general schedule was 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Would probably be ranked queue, and then 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. would be scrimmages with Gangstars. Any time outside of that, we would dedicate towards studying other teams, taking notes, doing solo queue, things of that nature. But eventually, I don't think any other teams really work that hard, or some of the local Korean teams probably have a lot of the same commitments that they do that when we do when we're home. So we were very lucky to be able to practice that much as a team.
So you're saying that basically you had the really kind of a blessing of being able to be so dedicated with all your other obligations left behind back in the States or back in North America.
Absolutely. I mean, I know if you look at other MOBA genres like League of Legends, especially, those teams live together 24/7. They have gaming houses where they eat together, they practice together, they do everything that essentially what we were doing in Korea, because that's ultimately what is going to allow them to find the most success in the long run.
So how much, my understanding from watching you guys, and this is my interpretation, and maybe I'm wrong in this, is that you're a very, what I'd call a cerebral team. I mean, you really kind of seem to put a lot of thought, planning, strategy, and so forth. And if there was any situations where maybe another team would be able to outdo you in mechanics, you were basically outthinking them, so to speak, whether it was in the draft or in your strategy or in your comps or whatever the case may be. How much time would you say you spent out of in-game and doing ranked queue and scrimming with Gankstars? Would you say you spent doing the thought work, the strategy, and so forth?
Definitely a lot. I think, again, a lot more than other teams, just to be realistic. The biggest change, even though VGL and VIPL were both draft mode, the biggest change going into VIPL was a time limit. There was a time limit that if you did not lock in a hero within that time limit, it's going to randomly select a hero for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen, because you don't want to play a hero that you've never practiced. So pretty much our approach to it was, before we started any practice, we already knew what team we'd be playing. So first thing we would do is go watch any of the current footage on that team. So a lot of times that was past VIPL footage. Sometimes we looked back. A lot of people stream. We would go check out their streams, and then even past tournament footage as well. Once we do that, we can find players' comfort picks. So then we can start developing a draft strategy. So even before we start practicing, we lay out all of the options in the way that a certain draft can go. I kept telling Shin and Miko the entire time, if there's any deviations to what we planned from in draft, that's going to be beneficial to us, because the way I approach it is you always want to plan out a draft against yourself. So if one hero is picked first, what is the worst possible hero that could be picked after that, and so on and so forth. And you run probably about 5 or 6 different variations, and they're all worst case scenario variations. So if you practice these worst case scenario variations, that kind of allows you to play, one, you're prepared. If it is worst case scenario, no matter what, you're prepared for it, because that's what you've been practicing all week before your game. If it's not a worst case scenario variation, then you have these comfort picks that you can kind of fall back onto, and I think a lot of times that's what helped us get the win.
That's awesome. How about yourself, Shin? I mean, were there things that you personally did as well, or with the team, to kind of prepare yourself mentally or otherwise for trying to get up to speed for whoever you were going to face next?
I mean, for the most part, so for me, I had to practice a lot in terms of the whole jungle rotations and things like that, because normally before this, I considered myself more of a laner than a jungler, so it was quite a bit to actually catch up on. I need to figure out like rotations, and if I need to play scout traps, or like how to approach it if we're getting invaded, because like for the most part, I haven't had a lot of experience with getting counter jungled super hard, so I need to find ways to sneak over to their side, and I struggled a lot with that at the start. So Flash was really helpful in terms of that, and we worked out through a lot of those issues early on and throughout the tourney. As for the drafting tactics, usually Mixie and I might give a little bit of input, but it was mostly Flash to come out with like a lot of those plans. And he had some pretty amazing calls too that that ended up coming true. For instance, one of the games against G2, we had predicted that if we left open Sky first, that they would pick Sky, but we also noted that they did not play Sky in game 1 against Hunters when it was open. So we figured that they probably didn't practice Sky enough, but that Sky was a strong pick and that they would want to play it. So we could counter with something of our own, less fast, like Ringo or Vox. And that actually panned out exactly as the way Flash had planned it. And there were several of those moments throughout the tournament. I'm like, dang, that was pretty amazing there. So.
Did you have like an internal moment of cheering when you see things go exactly the way you want to in the draft? Because I know that I know that from my perspective, even when I'm watching you guys score an ace, for example, or make a really great play, or even something bad happens to you and the camera comes over to your faces, it seems like nothing's changed. You've got your game face on 100% of the time, and it seems like you guys do a pretty awesome job of keeping your composure. And like, even if when you do some epic moment, you're not even thinking about, wow, did you just see what we just did? You're already thinking like, let's go to the next objective. Go, 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 go.
Yeah,
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Well, oh, sorry.
You go ahead. You go ahead, Chin.
Okay.
You got it.
So in terms of like when the draft goes our way, I think before we're in game, we show emotions a lot more. And I believe some of the viewers commented that when we were playing against Invincible Armada, that they could see the smile on Flash's face because he knew that the draft went exactly as the way that he planned. So I thought that was really really funny. But then when we're in game though, we're all very focused, and for the most part, like our moods don't sway too much. Even if we're down quite a bit of gold, we're still very focused on what we need to do to win. And we also don't get, I guess, I never really noticed, but we also don't get overly excited when we are ahead, as to like throw too many to like not to throw the game or whatnot. So I think that was a really great strength of ours. We could keep cool under pressure.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. And in fact, if you have any tips for players, I think that would be significant, because one of your big strengths was even when you were behind, you were always thinking about how are we going to change that? How are we going to make that better? And you were, and I don't know if I ever saw a situation where you tilted. Maybe you did and I didn't notice, but like I felt like you were always kind of very focused, and you were always figuring out how you were going to basically dig your way out of whatever mess you found yourself in. Is there any tips you could give people to help them with those sorts of situations if they find themselves in it?
It's definitely hard. I think that our ability to do that is extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I think it's just human nature. Like when you're losing, it is natural to get frustrated, not only at yourself but at your teammates too. I think I do a good job keeping the team motivated and saying, okay, guys, we got this. We got this. These are the factors that are going right for us. These are the things the other team's doing wrong, and this is what we're going to capitalize on. So it's really just a matter of just having a different mindset to losing. It is okay to lose. Losing to me is the quickest way to learn. If you're losing, it means you're making mistakes. You can go back, watch that video, and see how to correct those mistakes. So I look at losing as a beneficial thing. I personally think that has helped our team a lot. We lost a ton to Gangstars in our practices, a lot. But it ended up paying out for us a lot, so it was pretty helpful.
Let's throw out a real-world example here. Let me set a scenario. You're in Game 3 against Invincible Armada. You have 1 win, you have 1 loss. And for the most part, I'm sure you could tell as the game progressed, especially into the late game, that you were dominating them pretty hard. And at some point, I don't know if it was you were overstaying your welcome in their base, trying to take down that final turret or what, they ended up getting ace on you. Now, I know from your perspective, you probably didn't see the gold counters like I did in spectator mode, where I'm seeing an 8,000 gold lead quickly deplete to a 3,000 gold lead. And also, the death timers at that point were pretty long as well. So you're sitting there watching this take place. I mean, what were you thinking during this time? What was going on in voice chat? I mean, were you trying to kind of try to pick yourselves up off the ground? Were you talking about what you were going to do next? I mean, I'm very curious because, frankly, in a more general sense, if I was in a pro team, I don't know what I'd be saying over voice chat or what goes on in voice chat for you guys. So I know that was kind of a big question, but curious to kind of get your insights into that.
Yeah, so that was definitely a weird spot. We knew we were ahead when we all double infused. We were like, okay, we're going into the base. We knew that because we were all double infused. I think that they had 3 infusions on their team at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the farm difference. Like you said, we were 8,000 gold ahead. So we knew if we took a fight, we would win the fight. Invincible Armada's single biggest strength is that they play defensively incredibly well. That's how all of their VIPL games went, except for a couple where they just dominated the entire way through. But they just play passively, get the farm, and then win super hard late game. So that's their strength. We went into the base and initially started focusing the turret. Something happened in the midst of battle where I think Shin and Miko both started focusing the heroes. I was still on the turret, so it really just wasn't a very well coordinated fight. We ended up losing it pretty hard. I was able to stall for a pretty decent amount of time to prevent them from just ending the game right there, so I think that helped out a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we had going for us is when you go in to make a push like that, just have both of the minion mines. If you have both of the minion mines, the lane's going to be pushing. It's going to be very hard for them to regain that kind of map control. So after they got the ace, we knew that they made up significant ground. But just looking at CS numbers, Mixi was ahead of Druid, Shin was ahead of Wine, I was ahead of Ruin. So we kind of just said, we're fine. Yeah, they made up a lot of ground there, but we can just take another fight and end the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a first, by the way, just to hear someone being ahead of Druid and Farm.
I think the viewers were very surprised about that one. Oh man! So,
or go ahead, Shin.
I was just saying that it's funny because we had the gold bounties in mind. Like that's always been a thought in our heads throughout the whole like 1.12 patch. So we knew that we gave up a lot of gold, but nevertheless we were probably still ahead. And we're used to playing from behind, so the fact that we're ahead at all is usually a pretty good advantage. So I don't think we were actually too swayed by that. It's like, okay, well, that was unfortunate, but it's still good, and we'll be fine. We can just win the next fight or something along those lines.
It's really awesome for you guys to share kind of like the behind the scenes of what's going on in VIPL. So let's go ahead and talk for a moment now. Now that you're world champions, what's kind of next in your plans for world domination? I mean, where does Ardent Alliance go from here? What's next on your radar?
Right. So I think what's today? Thursday? Yeah, 2 days from now, VGL starts, Vainglory League, North American qualifiers. I know that SCMC has already published the esports calendar for the year. So there's 2 qualifiers followed by a live finals for each season now, and I think that they're trying to get it so that VIPL is worked in between each season. I'm not exactly sure how all that's going to work, but we'll see. So Ardent Alliance has really just become Alliance now. Joseph is now with Team Liberation. Mm-hmm. But we would really have liked to play with him again. He was the one who we qualified for VIPL with in the first place. I know Shin is without a doubt the most popular Vainglory streamer, and that's really Shin's passion. He definitely had a blast in Korea. We were super, super glad he was able to come with us. I mean, he was the MVP of the finals. But he would like to go back to streaming, so that also makes him perfect in the sub role. We also picked up Big Paws and Mixi's cousin Yazuru. So we have a 6-man roster, and we're now known just as Alliance. I'm still a part of Ardent, Shin's still a part of Ardent, Mixi's still a part of Ardent. But kind of our goal going forward is to contact some already established professional esports organizations and hopefully find one of them to sponsor our team the same way SK Gaming did with Red or G2 did with PPP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you don't have to look very far either. I mean, I'm hoping that after VIPL that there's some recruiters or someone sniffing around in your area of the world. So, what were you gonna say, Shan?
Oh no, I was gonna say like yeah. So I hope I don't disappoint too many people by going back to a sub role, but that's what I wanted to do because I really missed streaming for the most part. It killed me to keep everything a secret because, for instance, anytime I figure out like a cool build or like a new character I think is really strong, I couldn't tell anyone because I told anyone it just gives away that advantage. So as soon as I started to really like Cashflow, I can't be like, guys, you know what's really cool? Like Cashflow's really strong. You guys should build this and this and this. Because as soon as I start talking too much, then it's just like, oh, now they know I might play this character. Or if they didn't play that character, maybe they'll consider it now. So so I really wanted to get back and to teach people how to play. And that was one of the things that also I had found out throughout the course of VIPL. Like a lot of the other pro players came up to me and was like, hey, you know, I used to watch your stream, and your stream was what I watched to get into Vainglory, and it's so cool to think about, like, you know, my stream was the gateway for getting these guys onto this stage. So I would like to really continue that moving forward. But awesome. You know, that said, if they ever need a sub, I'll be there.
By the way, I can concur with you, Shin. I would much rather you have showing me the newest and coolest stuff to build so that I can actually be a better player. So, so I guess that's our time together. Sadly enough, I know it seems like it was short-lived, but I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with me, to be able to also share this, which I'll be sharing with the community in the very near future. Are there any people in your lives who supported you through this, who have supported you in kind of doing an esports career or as a streamer career or simply as at VIPL that you want to give a public thanks to? Friends, family, guilds, other teams, and so forth? I'll let you start off, Flash.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on it a bit earlier. SCMC, they were huge. Mob Crush, essential as well. Outside of that, though, I really take a lot of consideration into what my parents have to say, and they were definitely the ones who gave me the blessing to go ahead and pursue this. So I'm extremely grateful to them as well.
Shin?
So as for me, like, again, thank you to like the devs. Like the devs have always been supportive of me in streaming. Like right after the win, like so many of them sent like a text message saying, "Oh, good job, congrats," and the thing. I'm like, oh, that is really awesome. And of course, thank you to Marquez for making that possible. As for friends, I have so many friends that will like support me. Like you guys might have already seen, but Yuma, my girlfriend, was there at the live finals. Nivmit, who paid out of pocket just to be there to watch the finals, was pretty amazing. But lots of friends back home that were watching, like Solistia, Laser Crabs, like Dart, and like all of our guild members were there as well. And again, and also to my family. Amusingly enough, family members I didn't even know watch esports or that I even talked to in a long time started to send me messages and be like, "Whoa, we saw your thing," and like, that's nice. I didn't know you even knew that I was playing, but that's cool. So yeah, so thank you, and I'm sorry if I forgot anyone, but there were so many people that I'm very grateful to.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys once again. And all you Vainglorians who might be watching, I hope that you found this insightful and useful and entertaining to get to know some of these pro players. And hey, any of you pro sports esports teams that are out there, these guys are looking pretty awesome. Scoop them up, and I'm sure that they would appreciate it. So until next time, thank you, and have a good night.